Hello, good morning class. I will just share with you yung discussion dito sa sinend ko na PowerPoint presentation. Although it's late na, alam ko naman na late na, pasensya na kayo. So, yung topic natin for today is Fundamentals in General Chemistry. So, as you have watched before, yung YouTube video na pinapanood ko sa inyo and dun sa pag browse nyo dito sa PowerPoint presentation, ano ba talaga yung chemistry? Ano ba yung pag-aaralan natin sa chemistry? So, it is the study of the composition, properties, and transformations of matter. Which is, yung definition naman ng matter is anything that has mass and volume. So, yan yung definition ng matter. So, just like in the example, dito sa picture, sa diagram, makikita natin yung chemical composition ng sand. So, akala natin basta-basta sand lang yan yung ine-enjoy natin sa beach or sa dagat. So, ang chemical composition yan, if we look closer, so ito yung makikita natin kung particles lang siya. Pero what is really inside it is a combination of oxygen and silicon. So, oxygen and silicon. Okay? So, why do we have to study chemistry? Yung chemistry kasi, incorporated yan sa iba't ibang sciences natin. Meron sa physics, biology, even fisheries, geology, engineering, astronomy, pharmacy, agriculture. So, kung tutuusin, engineering, ano ba kinalaman ng chemistry sa engineering? Siguro yung mga properties ng chemicals na gagamitin sa pag-build ng mga buildings, yung hindi nagko-corrode agad or nasisira agad. So, siguro doon ginagamit yung chemistry. Ayan. So, kung makikita nyo sa picture, may iba't ibang gamit yung chemistry. Ito sa biology. Ito naman siguro pwede sa engineering, yung mga solar panels. Tapos, ito yung sa household natin. So, matter. Yung matter kanina na-define natin. So, pwede yung maging pure substances or mixture. And then, under pure substances, meron tayong elements and compounds. Elements which are metals, non-metals, or metalloids. Ito yung makikita natin sa periodic table of elements natin. Yung compounds, combinations of different elements to form compounds. Meron tayong acids, bases, and salts. Tapos yung mixture natin is it can be homogeneous or heterogeneous. So, later on in the discussion, makikita natin yung differences ng mga properties na yan. So, meron different phases and properties yung matter and it can undergo different changes also. So, ang pinaka-popular na states of matter is yung tinatawag natin solid, liquid, and gas. So, gas assumes both volume and shape of its container. It expands to fill its container. It is compressible, flows readily, and diffusion within a gas occurs rapidly kasi magkakahiwalay yung molecules ng gas. So, ito pwede natin makikita sa example is yung sa balloon. Kapag fill-in mo siya ng gas, habang nagbo-blow ka dun sa balloon na gamit mo, lumalaki siya hanggang kaya ng expand ng lungs mo. So, finifill niya kasi yung container niya hanggang kaya din mag-expand ng balloon. So, pwede rin siyang makompress at mabilis siyang mag-flow. Sa liquid naman, it also assumes the shape of portion of container it occupies. It does not expand to fill its container. It is virtually incompressible. It flows readily. Diffusion within the liquid occurs slowly. So, although pareho sila ng gas na nag-assume ng shape, yung liquids, hindi naman siya nag-expand para i-fill yung container. For example, meron kang isang baso. Tapos, naglagay ka ng liquid, nag-pour in ka hanggang dito lang. Hindi naman yan mag-expand hanggang dun sa dulo ng glass para ma-fill yung container. Wherein, pag sa balloon, pagka nag-blow sa balloon, kung hanggang nagbo-blow ka, nag-expand yan. Pero kapag tumigil ka na, fini-fill in pa rin niya kung ano yung shape ng container ng pinaglalagyan mo ng air. Okay, so yung solid naman, it retains its own shape and volume. So kapag ka, for example, dito sa glass, naglagay ka ng rectangular block. So, hindi siya mag-iiba ng shape para i-fill in din yung container, as is lang siya. It does not expand, it is virtually incompressible, it does not flow, and the diffusion is extremely slowly. So, unless yung solid na ilalagay mo is magme-melt siya, so that's the time na magpo-flow lang siya. Pero virtually, hindi nagpo-flow talaga yung mga solids, hindi siya fluid. Okay? Ito yung itsura ng mga molecules doon sa loob ng states of matter natin. Pinaka-popular na example is yung water. Kasi yung water, it can be present in the solid state, liquid state, and gaseous state. So, kapag solid siya, ito yung state ng water natin. Ganyan yung pagkakadikit-dikit ng molecule sa water. Sa water natin na solid in the form of ice. So, yung solid water natin is ice. And then, this naman is the liquid water. So, kung mapapansin nyo, ang pagkakaiba nila, medyo loose yung pagsasama-sama ng mga molecules sa liquid water. And, kapag nag-evaporate naman yung water, meron tayong water vapor. So, yan na yung gaseous state ng water natin. Okay? Meron tayong mga additional states of matter na bago lang na-discover. So, meron tayong plasma and yung tinatawag na Bose-Einstein condensate. So, yung plasma, it is an ionized, superheated gas or gaseous atoms or molecules, where molecules or ions and electrons coexist. So, medyo complicated yung definition ng plasma natin. So, this is an example of a plasma. The lightning on the left and the sun on the right are classic examples of the plasma states of matter. Okay? Yung Bose-Einstein condensate naman, it is supercooled gas to temperatures close to absolute zero. So, let's go back. Plasma is superheated gas, okay? Yung Bose-Einstein condensate is supercooled. Yun yung difference nila. Supercooled gas to temperatures close to absolute zero. It forms a so-called superatom. So, that is an example of a Bose-Einstein condensate. So, medyo complicated din siya. It's an isolated north pole of a magnet. Okay. Ano-ano yung changes na nag-occur sa matter? It can be physical or chemical change. Yung physical changes, it results to change in appearance physically but not in the composition. Yung chemical naman, it results to the formation of a chemically different substance. So, nakakabuo na siya ng totally different na substance. Yung physical, makikita mo lang na nag-iba yung appearance niya, pero yung composition niya is the same. Okay, let's see some examples. Yan. The physical change in matter occurs in, mas ma-demonstrate siya sa physical states na pinagdadaanan ng water. So, meron siyang solid, gas, and liquid. Kapag yung solid water ay nag-melt, magiging liquid siya. So, kapag yung liquid water naman nag-vaporize, magiging gas siya. And then, kapag nag-sublime or sublimation, nagiging yung deposition, nagiging solid siya. Kapag naman nag-sublime, yung solid magiging gas. Through condensation, yung gas magiging liquid. And through freezing, yung liquid magiging solid. So, pabalik-balik lang. Isang example ng sublimation, bibigay ko lang sa inyo para medyo maintindihan nyo. If you can recall yung mga naphthalene balls or yung mga mapuputing bilog-bilog na nilalagay natin sa cabinet. Di ba pag nilagay natin doon, after a period of time, nauubos siya. So, from solid state, nag-undergo siya ng sublimation, nagiging gaseous state yung mga naphthalene balls na ginagamit natin sa cabinet natin. Okay? Isang example yun ng physical change sa matter. Yung chemical changes naman in matter can best be observed through but are not exclusive to. Ito yung mga ma-observe natin kapag mayroong chemical changes na nangyayari. Merong changes in color, formation nun sa substance, meron tayong tinatawag na precipitate, nagkakaroon ng disintegration, and merong evolution of bubbles. Okay? So, yung properties naman, kanina we have discussed about the changes that matter undergoes. Ngayon naman, yung properties of matter natin. It can also be chemical or physical. So, yung chemical properties, it can be observed only upon a chemical change. Kapag may chemical changes lang na nagaganap. So, these are the examples: flammability or resistance to corrosion. Yung physical properties naman, this can be observed with no alterations on the substance composition. Ang examples are hardness and buoyancy. Yung hardness, kung gaano katigas yung substance natin. Yung buoyancy naman, yung ability niya to float in water. Okay? So, yung other properties of matter can be intensive or extensive. Intensive or extensive. Okay? Yung extensive properties natin, it depends on the amount of matter in the sample. So, these are the mass, length, volume. So, kapag nagdagdag ka ng substance mo, madadagdagan yung mass niya. Tataas yung mass, pwedeng humaba siya, at madadagdagan yung volume niya. So, kapag binawasan mo naman, bababa yung mass, liliit siya, at mababawasan yung volume niya. So, it depends on the amount of matter that you put in your sample. Yan yung extensive properties natin. So, nasa labas siya, extensive usually. Sabi, pag X, nasa labas. Okay? Next is yung intensive property naman. It is independent on the amount of matter. So, kahit gaano karami yung sample mo, kapag intensive yung property, it will stay the same. So, yung color change, or yung color, yung density niya, and boiling point. So, for example, water. Kahit magpakulo ka ng isang basong tubig, kapag na-reach niya yung boiling point ng water na 100 degrees Celsius, sa 100 degrees Celsius pa rin mag-start mag-boil yung isang basong tubig. Kapag naglagay ka ng isang baldeng tubig, hindi mo change yung boiling point ng water, it will still be at 100 degrees Celsius. Pag na-reach yung 100 degrees Celsius, magbo-boil na yung water natin. It does not depend on how much water you put in your sample. Yung boiling point niya will stay the same. Ganon din yung density ng water, at ganon din yung color ng water, or for other matters na meron tayo. Okay? Okay? So, yan yung kaninang in-explain natin. Dito tayo sa mixture naman. Ano ba yung mga mixtures na sinasabi natin? It is made up of different samples of matter of variable composition na pinagsama-sama. It can best be separated by physical methods of separation. Yung mga mixture natin. Pero hindi lahat ng mixture magpag-separate through physical methods of separation. So, ito yung mga sinasabi na physical methods of separation. First is based on the different densities of components. For example, based on different particle size, boiling point, affinity to adhering surface. So, yan yung mga examples. So, first, punta tayo dun sa based on the different densities of components. So, ang process na ginagamit dyan is called decantation. This is a process that depends on the differences in densities of the mixture's components and requires settling over time. Okay, so isang example ng decantation na araw-araw natin ginagawa sa bahay pero hindi natin nare-realize na nagiging may pagka-chemist pala tayo na nagsa-separate tayo ng mixture physically through decantation is kapag nagsasaing tayo, kung nagsasaing man kayo. Kung na-experience nyo magsaing, di ba, yung bigas, hinasama natin ng tubig. So, hinahaluan na natin ng tubig yung bigas. And then, that forms already a mixture of water and the rice grains. And then, hugasan natin siya. Di ba, tinatapon natin yung tubig na pinaghugasan ng bigas. So, after natin maghugas, hintayin muna natin mag-settle down yung rice grains and then itatapon natin yung tubig or hugas bigas na tinatawag. So, that is an example or a beautiful explanation of decantation. Simple lang siya at araw-araw yung ginagawa sa mga bahay nyo. So, that is decantation. So, sa decantation, meron tayong tinatawag na supernatant liquid. Yun yung liquid na tinatapon natin or tinatawag natin na hugas bigas. So, this is the liquid on top of the residue, also called the decantate. So, yan yung mga terminologies na ginagamit sa chemistry. Yung residue naman, nagre-represent doon sa rice grains natin, solid substances that are settling at the bottom of the flask or doon sa rice cooker natin or sa kaldero. So, yan yung illustration, the process of decantation sa laboratory. Ito yung tinatawag natin na decantate or the supernatant liquid at ito naman yung residue, yung naiiwan sa bottom ng flask. Ito siya before, shake, tapos hinayaang magsettle yung residue before siya paghihiwalayin. So, naghiwalay na sila through decantation. So, another one is filtration. This is a process that depends on particle size where the mixture passes through a porous membrane called the filter paper. So, ginagamitan na natin to ng filter paper. So, ayan yung illustration ng filtration. Kung makikita nyo, ang tawag din sa substance collected on the filter paper is the residue. Yung substance naman na nasa receiving flask is the filtrate. So, kanina, ang tawag dito is decantate, tsaka residue pa rin. Ngayon na, through filtration yung ginawa nating process, is now called the filtrate. So, next is distillation. Separate soluble liquids from each other by their differences in the boiling point. So, that is an example of distillation setup. Ang tawag naman natin sa liquid na nako-collect dito sa end flask is the distillate. So, mag-undergo yan ng process wherein pakukuluan yung mixture natin. Tapos, dadaan sila sa condenser na merong mga outlet. Since iba-iba yung boiling point nila, merong mas mauunang mag-boil, may mas mauunang mag-evaporate, kaya magkakahiwa-hiwalay sila. So, ang matitira lang sa iyo is yung pure water. Usually, ginagawa to sa pag-purify ng water natin. Kung makikita nyo minsan dun sa mga binibili natin na water bottles, makikita natin yung distillation, isa sa process na ginagamit nila para ma-purify yung water. Next is chromatography. This is a process that depends on the differing abilities of substances to adhere to the surfaces of solids. So, sa forensic chemistry, isa yung chromatography sa ginagamit namin na process para ma-determine yung presence ng dangerous drugs. So, this is an example of a chromatography setup. So, ito yung sample natin. Andyan ito yung mixture natin na sinasabi. So, while ito yung solvent system natin, ito solvent system. Pag dinip natin dyan yung chromatogram natin or yung paper chromatograph or TLC, makikita natin unti-unting naghihiwalay siya yung mga substances na present dun sa sample natin kanina. So, ibig sabihin, itong mga to ay different substances. So, meron lang silang iba-ibang abilities na mag-stick dito sa paper natin or sa TLC or kung ano man yung adsorbent or solid phase na ginagamit natin. So, isa yung method ng separation na ginagamit natin sa chemistry. So, next are homogeneous solutions, heterogeneous. Homogeneous mixtures are single-phase mixture with uniform composition. So, kapag tiningnan mo siya, parang new compound lang siya na isa lang siya. They are also called solutions and it can be solid, liquid, or gaseous states. So, the examples are brass for solid, wine for liquid, and air for gas. So, example is, kung titingnan mo tong ringer or doorbell, brass yan. Kapag tiningnan natin siya, parang isang compound lang siya. Pero it's actually an alloy made of zinc and copper. Pero hindi mo na siya madadetermine kung nasan yung zinc or copper dyan kapag tiningnan natin siya with our naked eye. Next is wine. Parang pure wine siya, pero iba-iba yung composition niya. So, meron siyang color, may nadinagdag, effervescence, water, basta may iba-ibang composition yung wine. At yung air, akala natin yung air na binibreathe natin is just oxygen, kasi oxygen lang naman yung kailangan natin. Pero, yun pala, it is, yung pinakamalaking composition ng air is nitrogen with 78%. Yung oxygen natin sa air is only 20.9% at meron pa siyang iba't ibang gases na present. So, merong argon, merong carbon dioxide, at iba pa. Okay, so that is an example of a homogeneous mixture. Kasi kung titingnan mo, hindi naman na natin nakikita yung air, pero kung raramdamin natin yung air, hindi naman iba-iba ng ramdam sa katawan natin yung air. Parang isang mixture lang siya na homogeneous yung ano. Next, sa heterogeneous naman tayo. So, hetero, ibig sabihin iba-iba. Yung homo kasi, ibig sabihin isa lang siya or magkakapareho. So, this does not have the same composition, properties, and appearance throughout. So, this can be suspension or colloidal. Yung suspension, they have big particles and heavy enough that they settle at the bottom of the container and block off light. So, this is an example of a suspension of sand and water. The mixture still have undissolved solid particles that settled at the bottom with some particles still floating. So, usually yung mga dumi nandito. Okay? So, this is called a suspension. Next are colloids. They have particles light enough that they don't settle down, but large enough that they reflect light to exhibit the so-called Tyndall effect. So, ano ba yung Tyndall effect na yan? Yan. That is the illustration of a Tyndall effect. Kung makikita nyo, from here, hindi niya na-reflect yung light or na-diffuse yung light, pero na-block niya. Pero may mga ibang particles pa na nare-reflect yung light. So, that is called a Tyndall effect in a colloidal system. So, these are the other examples of a gaseous mixture and the colloidal type, colloidal system. Whipped cream, emulsion. So, usually yung mga aerosol natin ay colloidal siya. Marshmallow, butter, ruby glass. Kasi kung titignan mo yung ruby glass sa light, nag-exhibit siya ng Tyndall effect. Whipped cream, smoke, excuse me. So, punta tayo sa pure substances of elements and compounds. Pure substances are those so-called and cannot be longer be separated by physical means of separation. Those with fixed composition and distinct properties that do not change from sample to sample. So, it employs chemical means to separate them into compounds and elements. So, this is the example of separating a pure substance like water. It's pure substance. It does not change in its composition all throughout. And yung separation niya into elements is done through electrolysis. So, yung water natin is made up of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. So, through the process of electrolysis, pinaghihiwalay niya yung oxygen atoms at saka yung hydrogen atoms. Kung mapapansin nyo dito, yung oxygen gas natin is O2. Hydrogen gas is H2. So, usually kapag gaseous yung substance, diatomic particle siya or dalawa yung atoms niya na magkasama. Pero kapag nag-combine na yan siya sa water, isang atom lang ng oxygen ang kailangan ng dalawang atoms ng hydrogen. So, medyo malalim na chemistry yung kailangan natin dun. Pure substances, which are elements naman, this can no longer be decomposed into simpler form. It is composed of only one kind of atom. It can be described or defined as metals, non-metals, or metalloids. Kaya pinagpe-prepare ko kayo ng periodic table of elements kasi doon natin makikita yung mga metals, non-metals, or metalloids na element natin. Pwede nyo tingnan yung, if you already have your periodic table of elements, you can check kung ano doon yung metals, non-metals, or metalloids natin. Just to see. So, that is an example of the periodic table of elements. Sorry. So, ito yung legend niya. Those in the box with this color are the metals. So, ayan, metals. And these metals. And then, yung light green are non-metals. Oops. Yan, non-metals and this one. So, yung purple naman are the metalloids or yung nasa borderline ng naghihiwalay ng metals at non-metals. Okay, so kung mapapansin nyo, yung hydrogen lang yun nandito sa left side. So, pure substances, yung mga metallic elements, ito yung properties niya. So, they are located on the left side of the periodic table except for hydrogen. They have characteristics such as being lustrous. They are good conductors of heat and electricity, and they are more dense. All of them, except mercury, are solid at room temperature. Yung mercury kasi is called a liquid metal. Siya lang naiiba. Iba-iba. Next, they are malleable and ductile. Yung malleability is the ability to be flattened into sheets like iron, yung iron na flatten siya sa sheet. Yan yung mga properties ng metals. Ductility is the ability to be drawn into wires. Kaya nga yung mga wires natin are metallic at nagagawa siyang maliliit na wires because of the property of ductility. So these are the elements, examples. This is silver and this is gold. Iron, copper, aluminum. It's aluminum. This is silver. This is lead and gold. Okay. So, yung non-metallic elements, they are located on the right side, including hydrogen. So, most gases are solid and one is liquid. Some are solid and one is liquid. Liquid gas, okay. They are good insulators. or ini-insulate nila yung heat at saka electricity. Magkasalungat sila ng ability to insulate ng metals. These are examples of non-metallic elements. We have bromine, liquid type. We have carbon, phosphorus, and sulfur. So, solid type sila. Ito, liquid type. Yun yung sinasabi kanina. Yung compounds naman, they are pure substances composed of two or more elements combining at definite proportions. So, we have acids, bases, and salts. So, these are the properties. An acid donates hydrogen atom. It tastes sour. It's itchy, corrosive. The pH of an acid is below 7. And it turns blue litmus paper to red. And an example is hydrochloric acid. Or sa household natin, yung hydrochloric acid is ginagamit natin as muriatic acid panlinis ng CR. Kaya medyo kapag naglinis ka ng CR gamit yung muriatic acid, mahapdi siya sa mata, mangangati yung kamay mo kapag na-expose. So, dapat hindi tayo kukulong sa CR na walang ventilation using muriatic acid. Dapat well-ventilated yung area para hindi tayo masuffocate. Another example of an acid in our household is vinegar. Vinegar or yung suka natin, which is actually, the chemical composition is acetic acid, CH3COO. So, ito yung tinatawag natin na nagdo-donate kasi siya ng hydrogen atom. So, ito din may hydrogen atom siya, H plus, Cl negative. Okay, yung base naman, ang dinodonate naman niya na atom is hydroxide atom. It tastes bitter, it's slippery, the pH is greater than 7, it turns red litmus paper to blue, and the example is ammonium hydroxide. Usually, yung mga bases natin is yung mga nasa soap and detergent natin. That is why they are slippery. And kapag nakakain ka ng sabon habang naliligo ka, it's bitter to the taste. And another example is sodium hydroxide. So, kung makikita nyo yung chemical formula nila, meron siyang OH. Ito din, merong OH. Next is salts. These are, the name implies, salts taste salty. And the ions it donates can either be hydroxide or hydrogen atom. The pH of a salt is neutral or at 7. And an example is sodium chloride or the table salt. Sa household natin, sodium chloride is salt. Then, another one is barium sulfate. So, how do we classify matter? Matter can be classified into mixtures or pure substances. So, we just have to ask dito sa diagram, does it have variable composition? If yes, they are mixtures. If no, they are pure substances. Kapag mixture siya, do we visibly see distinguishable parts? If yes, they are heterogeneous. If no, they are homogeneous. Homo, one, hetero, many. So, pure substance, if they are pure substances, does it contain various types of atom? If no, then they are elements. If yes, they are compounds. Through chemical methods, yung compounds natin mababroken down into elements. And then, finally, magiging atom siya. Okay. So, for your exercise, I hope nagawa niyo na to. So, which of these exhibit physical change and which are chemicals? The photosynthesis in plants, water vapor in the air forms frost, cooking an egg to a hard boil. So, photosynthesis in plants. Ito yung process ng plants na paggawa ng pagkain nila. So, is it chemical or physical change? Yung water vapor naman, naging frost siya. Is it chemical or physical change? Parang nagkaroon lang siya ng change in the state of matter. Then, cooking an egg to hard boil. Let's see. May answer na ba ako? Wala dun yung answer. So, let's see ha. Now, describe an intensive or extensive property. Iron nails gets attracted to the magnet. Yung attraction niya sa magnet, is it intensive or extensive? Oil floats over water. Buoyancy. The amount of heat required to boil water. Does it change? So next, classify the following as heterogeneous or if it's solution or compound or element. So steam, diamond ring, stainless steel. So these are the answers. Photosynthesis shows chemical property kasi nagbe-breakdown yung ginagamit ng plants, yung carbon dioxide na kinukuha nila sa air, tapos yung chlorophyll na nasa leaves nila para makagawa sila ng food. So that is chemical change. Yung water vapor turning into frost, that is only a change in the state of matter and does not actually change water. That is only physical. Cooking an egg to hard boil is chemical change. Next, so iron nail gets attracted to the magnet, that is intensive property. Kasi hindi naman napapalitan, kahit gaano kadaming iron nail yung ilagay mo, ma-attract pa rin siya sa magnet. Oil floats in water, that is buoyancy, that is intensive property. Yung amount of heat required to boil a water, it depends. Sabi ko kanina, kahit isang basong tubig, hindi pa rin mag-change yung boiling point at 100 degrees Celsius ng water kahit na isang drum pa or isang balde yung ipapakulaan mo. 100 degrees Celsius pa din yung boiling point ng water. But, yung amount of heat required para mag-boil siya to 100 degrees Celsius is extensive. Kasi, syempre, konting heat lang yung kailangan mo kapag magbo-boil ka ng isang basong tubig compared to kung magbo-boil ka ng isang drum na tubig, maubos yung gas mo. 'Di ba? So, that is an extensive property. Yung sa classification naman, so, these are the answers. Steam is a compound. Diamond ring is a heterogeneous mixture. And stainless steel is a solution. Ito kasi homogeneous siya eh. So, solution. This is a compound. Compound, yung steam natin. And diamond ring is a heterogeneous mixture. So, next time naman yung reactions in matter. Ito na yung susunod natin sa next klase natin, okay? Medyo mahaba na yung discussion ko. Naka 30 minutes na ako, okay? Next time ko naman i-discuss another discussion naman yung reactions of matter. So, thank you very much for your cooperation and thank you for listening. Kung may questions kayo dun sa diniscuss ko, please let me know. Thank you.